this bigger irrational behavior of the world. But over the next few years, we're clicking into the really 60-degree, and then it all cooperates again. And with Capricorn and Pisces, this is a very beautiful cooperation, by the way, Capricorn, Pisces. Those are two signs that work together, and when the ruling planet is in its sign, in Pisces now, for a long time, by the way, until 2024, more or less, that gives us indeed an amazing chance. And the two examples you mentioned, I found truly amazing, and they're very precise. So it's the legalization of certain herbs, which this planet has given us, this herb, and it can be applied for medicine, and it can be applied for 100 other applications, from textile to building to 100 applications. It's in my book as well. And that creates, of course, an enormous economy. And we've seen it. Colorado legalized and boom, they're out of the problem. So I don't know what takes the other 49 states so long. And that would be the instant.
People in Colorado just got a huge tax refund from the marijuana initiative.
Yes.
Everybody in Colorado got something like $7,000 or $8,000.
Yeah. Are we rolling now?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So, okay, two things she said. Please keep in mind. Please listen. I know that somebody front-loaded you with a darker outlook into the future. And again, I'm not just because of Pisces, Sagittarius rising saying, oh, it's all dandy and pink and it's nice. But I mean, look at this planet. And she told you yesterday, somebody's messing this up. But that's we as a whole mankind. But now some of us are coming in, whether we came in through the Nordics or through other, it doesn't really matter. But we figured out that we must help people to do what we said this morning, fast acceleration. And we have this chance. It's right now with us. And I actually trust Mr. Merriman to be correct, that as of 2020, 21, we should have the upswing in economy. It's just going to be a different kind of economy than the model, the paradigm we have until now that we're still in. That would explain why you're saying, I'm addressing here Egon von Greyerz, from what he explained to us, that the problems we've had and still have, they are going to be resolved. When exactly, I can't say with certainty, but there's certainly a first phase coming up right now at the end of 2015, up about to middle of 2016, due to the alignment Ray Merriman explained yesterday with Egon. And now to jump forward in 2020-21, when we have the Saturn Jupiter Pluto alignment coming in that we discussed with Ralphie Finn's question. And then, Hank, sir, you said the Doppler effect. It took me aback first. I had to think over it at night and said, yeah, that's right. It's going to go like boom. And it could catapult the world in a good way. I don't see it as a problem, really. I don't see. I can see that some will miss the train. That's fine. They chose to be behind. Leave them. That's their problem. It's not really your or my problem. But I see that we are going to go forward in a positive way. Some of us will. Sorry?
Think of all the Islam stuff going on.
It's not a problem. It's an artificial story. That, yes, it is. This is a typical extraterrestrial combat. Now, no, seriously, this is mind control stories. This is Neptune. This is the darker application of Neptune in Pisces. Wars on the mind. The entire warfare that we're in is the war on the mind. Right, Johnny? We talked about all this. The war is on your mind, sir. On the mind of mankind. Sorry?
What about those ISIS people, these terrorists? I mean.
Okay, cut the camera. Cut the camera.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Cut. No, it's okay. Lunch more about this thing. You see, I could speak to you. We could speak together for 2 weeks. We could go through everything. Your book, my book. He knows a lot of stuff.
What is Professor Fursov saying?
Okay, Professor Fursov in Moscow. To answer your question, Ray, what's the purpose, etc. Well, he says, yes, he says from his analysis, based on partly Russian intelligence, Chinese intelligence, and by observing Brzezinski's change in policy teaching. Brzezinski has a doctrine that he told them, let's say about 50 years ago, and this doctrine is still valid with Wolfowitz, etc., and they're continuing this doctrine, which is, in short, hegemony. Hegemony. Hold on, please don't interrupt me, because I'm please, sir, for 1 second. control of the world, basically. Okay, the control has slipped out of their control. They would like to have the control, but they're no longer having it. What they have created with ISIS, Iraq, Libya, Syria, and all the rest of it is beginning to backfire, actually. But the purpose is, and Fursov agrees with his research in Moscow, he says they wish to subdivide the whole Middle East differently, redraw the maps, that's Yemen, everything that's going on there, will result in a completely redrawn map of the entire area from, say, about Egypt all over to, they wish, to Iran. What has, however, happened, and I have to talk reality and then come back to the genetics, please remind me of genetics, is that what's going on is that Putin and his services, his diplomats, Mr. Lavrov and all the others have come together and they're trying to bring Iran into their club economically, strategically. They have a full spectrum alliance from transportation, energy, defense, foreign policy, economy, etc. They're going to make deals with each other in their currencies. I mean, you know all about that. This will result in a kind of planetary federation minus the Western world if the Western world chooses not to join that planetary federation. So that's the grand picture I was showing you yesterday. But to come back to the datings, I do agree with what you said, that end of this year and 2016 may symbolize a shift in the affairs of gold and interest rates. And 2021, I'm going very fast now because we've only little time, we will begin to see the shift in global affairs as well as economics. And Mr. von Greyerz explained to us yesterday what he sees coming, and that's clear, logically very clear that that's going, but that pertains mainly to the Western world. I see that China, India, Russia, Iran, all of BRICS and many others, all the 100 non-aligned nations, will move into a new paradigm, maybe by 21, maybe it's during the Saturn Neptune moment, which would be 2024 to 26, more or less. I'm doing all this by heart, but I hope it's more or less right. 2025, I've shown you an aspect on the 31st of July, where we're already on the first degree Aries, but we move back and forth one more time. But I need to come back before I forget to the genetics, which is part of it, that Antonia Langsdorff mentioned. And she's actually right, this is Neptune, Pisces, all these things. But guess what the genetics are, among other things? All these vaccination programs that they want to enforce on people, therein lies an attempt at genetic games playing. Is that correct, more or less? Okay.
Genetic manipulation.
Yes. And so now guess who hundreds of thousands of years ago tried genetic manipulation? What are we here with the result of that? And so now we're going to try to do this to ourselves. You see where this is going? But I'm positive, nevertheless, like you, that I see the 500-year shift. It's also a little bit in my book. And you're absolutely right. You figured something out that's very important and very well summed up. Now, you meant to ask something. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but if I lose the context, then I'm all over the place.
It's called full spectrum dominance.
Yes.
And this is the Brzezinski and Wolfowitz and
Yes.
and so on doctrine.
Yes,
Full
but
spectrum dominance over the world.
yes, but that's not going to happen, sir. That's what they would like to do.
Yes.
But the Russian intelligence and the Russian scientists, and I'm not taking sides. I'm reporting this to you as if I would, as an intelligence officer, report to a general. So I'm just neutrally saying, here are your facts, sir. You decide. So I'm not taking sides when I speak. Do you understand? The Russians, they are more advanced in science, they're just more advanced brains, basically. The best chess players, facts. And they figured it out. It took them a while. When Putin came in 1999, he first had to clean house. He had a bunch of gangsters trying to steal his country and hand it over to the West. That didn't work, but that was the plan. Now he's coming to his third phase, where he's surrounded by sovereignists who are saying, look, let's just be our nation and be friends with whoever wants to be friends with us. And I can pretty much predict that a lot of the nations of this planet are going to become friendly with each other. And we hope that the Western world also wants to join all this, and then we're all together. And I believe this is possible. Perhaps in 4 or 5 years, perhaps it is after the next American president, perhaps it is in 2025. But the train of BRICS and non-aligned nations has left the station. So if the others want to be behind, their problem, right? So I'm just trying to say, I do not see all these nuclear wars, all this bad stuff. I don't. Possible is maybe an asteroid, but that's not. I can't predict it by. Sorry, go ahead, you and then you.
I have a question actually for everybody.
Yes.
Because we're all looking at these cycles from our various points of view, and we're making predictions about how the cycle will manifest.
Yes.
But it's also possible that you can look at it from an astrological point of view, and I can't imagine this wouldn't be true from other perspectives, that Neptune represents sort of, you know, the highest in our achievements of consciousness and altered states and
I agree.
undifferentiated oneness that unites us, but it's also the lowest forms of drug and alcohol states, and it's illusion and delusion. And we're talking about billions of people being subjected to these influences, if I can use that causal.
That's correct, and electromagnetic influences too.
How do we then see the spectrum of reaction to these points, these intersecting points? Because we can say, okay, you know, we know the CIA or whatever is manipulating throughout their particular history and so forth.
Well, let's just say the shadow government. We don't have to point to a specific agency. It's okay. Yes.
But, you know, I was chased by the FBI as a little girl, so I
So you know.
and I figure they already have a file on me, so it doesn't matter. But the holy wars that are being fought, for the people who are fighting them, are real. Because their consciousness is not going to the highest point of the spectrum.
Yes, that is naturalistic.
Right, so you know, I just want to sort of add that into our discussion, because
This is
I
correct.
think it's easy to forget that.
This is very important, what you said. This is really important. A planetary alignment can manifest to its highest degree with some, everything that we've just heard, or it can also go really bad for the others, who are not simply in the stream of consciousness out compared to a jet stream of galactic stuff, and it just goes through some heads and not through some others. I mean, I'm simplifying. Sorry, Johnny, next question.
I just want to comment on the beautiful question. You said in the little famous video with the Camelot people that again, as the sort of the external reality, whatever you want to call it, dims down and the new mind wakes up.
Yes.
As a shift.
And that's what she said.
You said that some people will lose it.
Yes.
I think that's the answer.
I actually did say that, yes.
Hopefully we, or as many people as possible, wake up to this new reality, some people will not. And that's the other side of Neptune.
Yes.
They're Republicans, right?
No, we don't speak in terms of American, I mean, we mean mankind. I'm sorry?
Because here I'm seeing a pyramid or triangle. You know the answer to Isis, the three of you. You three astrologers probably could understand and why, because I can see it historically, because I've studied social science, politics, economic history, and ancient history.
She's got 3
So
degrees.
She's
got 3 degrees. Social sciences, economic
It's happened before. Native America got complete genocide about an entire nation. It's just that we're filming it. You know, today we're filming it, but they're doing exactly what was done to North America, the Maya, the Celts, and then more recently it's been going on in little bits, and they've ramped it up again.
Yes.
So probably astrologically, if you look at it in a historical context, you probably could nail it down to say, okay, in these alignments, look, it's coming back. And then the question is, why are we why are we living this alignment in that way? I think that's an answer.
This is well said. This is really well explained by the seer, because the historical, okay, this is Krishnamurti, you have to observe, right? So you're a historian, you studied history, you study economics, you do everything you did. That's observing what is, facts. That's Krishnamurti, observe what is. Don't judge, just don't reject, don't accept, just look at it. That's what an intelligence officer does. Just look at it and hand it over to the boss. And what she said is really correct. I just want to add that these wars, whether it is Maya, whether it's this or that, or ISIS or the next, that's, I'm sorry to repeat, it is non-human by design. To use a diplomatic term,
Yeah,
is that
but
nice?
to bring it back to the earth, because
Yeah,
the
sure.
Romans created the whole Roman Empire,
Yes.
and they did it over hundreds of years, using they did what ISIS are doing now, except we don't know it, we didn't film it.
Yeah,
So
well,
they're,
the point is, what are we going to do about it? I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
Well, what we're doing
I kind
is,
of don't like it that the world is looking at what's happening and not doing anything, or just
what
have
we're
their-
doing
have
about
their
it is
way
this
with the
meeting.
world.
Sorry.
I don't
Yeah.
like that.
No, what we're doing, Antonia, what we're doing is this meeting. You're doing what you're doing. Ray's doing what he's doing. He's doing. She's doing. We are doing what we can do. That's what we're doing. And that, trust me, I shouldn't say trust me, but this will work. It will have its effects. But yes, that is why I'm profoundly confident of a better development. Daniel had a question before we forget.
Going back to Mr. Brzezinski.
Yes.
It's interesting that in the last 60 days, he's softened his tone towards Russia.
That's
From
correct.
attacking Russia to now he's saying we must cooperate with Russia. So him being the founder of the Council of Foreign Relations, I assume he's speaking for them still. And that's a big change.
Yeah, that is a big change.
That is very important. I almost forgot. Thank you for saying this. This is very important. This was what Forsov said. See, Professor Forsov observed Brzezinski for the last, 20, 30, 40 years. And he said it too. He said the fellow is changing gradually his compass. And he's also seeing that his little apprentices, they've gone completely behind the 8 ball. But now that he's saying what we were just told, there is a chance that his apprentices have to toe the line, or there's a change in governmental structures. And I see that coming, maybe not with the next president. It seems almost impossible, but nothing's impossible. But for sure, the one who comes in 2021, on the alignment that I show on the cover of my little book, St.Clair Brief. That's the 21st of January 2021. That's when he's going to be sworn in, the new guy. And that new guy, whoever that is, could actually present a change. I mean, I'm summing up once again at high speed stuff we've all looked into. I'm just trying to say I'm confident about good things to happen. And Antonia has given us actually the bigger picture of the 500-year cycles. You must, however, keep in mind that there were moments when mankind actually stepped backwards. Due to whatever happened, it doesn't matter external, internal, but sometimes it goes down again and up again. But I feel we're on the whole not only in an upswing, but we're in an acceleration of time. I see acceleration happening, maybe not for all the 7 billion people. Maybe there will be less people one day, like you asked yesterday, or maybe there will be 10 billion but better organized. It doesn't matter, but I see that in a majority, I don't mean by 51% majority, but an important qualitative improvement of the awareness of human beings will be able to sort of tip the scales, although tipping the scales is not a good analogy. But I see that, if we just say we have now today 100 super aware people, and in a year we have 1,000 super aware. Let's say that in 2020 we have 1 billion super aware people. That's 1 out of 7. That's plenty good to go. Because the others, I mean, it's like homeopathy. You put a certain drop into it. You don't need 10 drops if 2 drops can do. And 2 drops can change the music. Ego.
I agree with what you said also before about the fall of the West and the rise of the East. And I think sometimes in these discussions, and even myself yesterday, we tend to generalize.
Yes.
But as I see it, you're absolutely right. And what I'm expecting is the decline of the West and the rise of the East. And of course, you can just follow the flow of gold to follow the gold.
Follow the gold.
Who's buying gold? India, Russia, China, etc. The wise people. But then, so therefore, the real decline, as I see the world, will be in the West. What I want to ask you in connection with that is also when you make the astrological predictions, you or Antonia, we talked about the world, but you're never. Can you use astrology to actually talk about which regions things are going to happen in? Because we're talking about the whole world, and you rightly said it's not going to happen to the whole world. It's mainly the West. This is where we have the decadence, and this is where we have the excesses, and this is why we're going to see the decline here. Sorry.
40 minutes.
Okay, yes. In general, well, yes and no. If I have an accurate date of a formation of an entity, I can do, and she can do, we can do certain works. We can say Germany would be this and this. The problem we have, I'm using Germany on purpose because you're German, we don't actually have a real German date because very few understand that Germany has not actually been released after the conflict that ended in actually today, 70 years ago, to the day. Right? Today is when in Moscow, it was funny, huh? 70 years ago today. There has never been a release, there's never been a peace treaty, a real treaty signed, and there actually it is still an occupied place. I mean, that's another fact, and I think you understand what I'm saying. And so we don't have a date to say for Germany what we should be able to say. We have one for the Fifth Republic in France, we have one for Russia when Yeltsin in Minsk says, okay, we're going to go on our own, and the whole thing falls apart. And so you have the Russian Federation with a precise date. You have a precise one for China, the Mao China at least. So when we have a precise date, we can narrow it down. But that works only to some degree. That's why I said yes and no. Because I'm of the view, both as an astrologer and a guy who studied political sciences and all that stuff, that, it's too complex. The stuff belongs together. And if we apply Krishnamurti, then astrology is a part of the whole thing, but we have to look at everything. So that's why I say yes and no. So I'll come right back to it. We can sort of show the grand lines of consciousness in a way, but we've already said yes, but the jet stream of the galactic whatever touches some minds but not others, some are more dense than others. So we can't say for whole humanity, oh, it's going to be this or the other. It's just more, yes, go ahead.
Well, we have been related to Claude Weiss from Switzerland a couple of times. Claude Weiss will be teaching at Montefalcone, and he's very good in doing regional predictions, and among other things, he is using the charts of solar eclipses.
Yes.
He's working very strongly with solar eclipses because the way they are casted, they're casted, the shadows are casted in different parts of the world. So he relates to that.
The eclipse path.
Yeah, the eclipse path, he relates to that. He also, of course, relates to the charts of countries and his own, and sometimes just the capital cities charts or the political leaders charts. Ray does that too. So he's pretty advanced in that. So if you want to find out more about that kind of work,
He's in Zurich, and I follow his work. I studied him very carefully.
Very good, and he will be teaching at Montefalcone. So if you come there, you could meet him in person. And if you'd be interested, follow what he's doing. And there's another really an English person who did a lot of study on that. That's Nick Campion.
Yes, Nick
He
Campion.
published a book called what's it called? The Mundane, the Book of World Charts.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
So
problem
you will
is
find-
what you
will
have.
find He put together all the available data, for the country's charts. If you want to find out, you can work with that quite a bit.
It is indeed possible. You're absolutely correct. This is how you can work it. I've just tried to explain to you, Egon, that as you know, anyway, the stuff hangs together so tight that you can't just pick out one country out of the Rubik cube and say, okay, the green dot here will do this, but the red one behind. It's very complex. But This is true, and I follow Claude Weiss' work carefully. I studied him. He's in Zurich, by the way. And I followed Nick Campion, so I studied all these guys. They have one issue, though, and I want to come to the eclipse. It's in here. I put it in here, the eclipse story, because we studied it with this last eclipse, which was super powerful in the zone of 30 Pisces, 1 Aries. What goes on is, oftentimes when you have a date given for a nation, it may not always be exactly precise, or it may actually be in the wrong historical context. I'm going to give you now an example that you're going to love. This is a question I was going to ask you. We have how many more minutes? Sorry.
30.
Okay. The United States of America, I know you use the chart you use, and we all use it, of course, and it's a beautiful chart. 1776. Okay, now there are other astrologers say, well, hold on a second, that was when they did XYZ, I believe it was the paper they signed. But they say, well, but actually it was really when the 13 colonies did ABC, that's another chart, etc. And I said to these guys, those are colleagues of mine, I said, okay guys, this is all good and well, but you understand that in 1913 the Federal Reserve was formed, and what is the Federal Reserve? We've been told this yesterday by the expert, and I can just plain and simple kind of sum it up, if you allow, that the Federal Reserve owns the land from coast to coast. The United States belongs to the Federal
We have
Reserve.
time for that, though.
USA Corp, right? And you have different law. So you switch then from Admiralty law. I mean, I studied this for 20 years, and I had insiders explain to me, lawyers, experts, intelligence people. I mean, I have it coming at me multidimensional. The long story short is, perhaps 1913, the December chart that you know very well that you use for the Federal Reserve, is the new chart of the United States of America. I'm just throwing this in to illustrate that oftentimes some astrologers need to carefully look deeply into the history and the reality of the history as it pertains to the power structure. That's a Scorpio moon speaking, the 10th house. But now back to the eclipses. I have it in my book. I believe that Claude Weiss and the eclipse method is super, super important. Because what happens, as we have seen in this last one just a few weeks back, and our friend, the camera, the seer lady, filmed it actually. She was blessed enough to actually see the event and be able to film it, which is not an easy task, by the way, to do. So once again, the observer, seer, brought it to us. So I can show you the line on the world map where it was going through. It begins in the north in Svalbard, where there is the Arctic vault, the seed vault for the breakaway civilization. That's above north of northern Scandinavia, and it went through between, I'm doing this by heart now, Scotland and Iceland, and down. So the long story short of that method, just so you know what that means for regional astrology, you could then say in theory, and in some part in practice, you can say, okay, an eclipse that lasts 4 hours means the event will have certain effects during 4 years, 1 year per 1 hour is the rule of thumb, over the region where the shadow was seen the best, the most precisest. And hence comes actually, to go backwards in time, the Chinese saying that we always use among the three of us. And what is the saying again? Future events, or events cast their shadow before them.
Yeah.
That is a Chinese saying.
But we have that in German too.
You do?
Ja.
Wie
Die
sagt man?
Ereignisse werfen ihre Schatten voraus.
Ereignisse,
Oder auch im Deutschen. Die
yeah,
Ereignisse
that's
werfen
true.
ihre Schatten voraus. Ja.
Ah, that's eclipse.
Interesting.
And so,
Good point.
to answer you, and the Chinese, I didn't know the
Good
Germans
point.
had it too.
Oh, about that.
And then, so to answer your question, you could then actually, and that's hugely complex, right? Because you have one of those eclipses, a big one every, say, there's not an exact science to it, but maybe every 20, 40 years or so, maybe every 200 years, but it depends where it is, and it depends how powerful it is. By powerful, I mean, is it just a 20-minute event or 4.5 hour event? 4.5 hours, that is massive. And it was pretty
4.5 minutes.
Yeah.
4.5 minutes. The total eclipse is only maybe 1 to 7 minutes.
Yeah, no, the internal one, but on a solar eclipse like we had in Germany a few weeks back, the whole event lasted, I
4
believe,
hours.
about 4 hours.
Well,
And
that's when it begins to cast its shadow till it ends.
yes, correct,
The
sir.
point
Yes,
when it's actually totally black is.
that's
1
only a
minutes.
few minutes.
Yeah.
But no, you're correct.
I see
Absolutely,
what
that's
you mean.
correct.
Okay, good clarification.
Yes, that's that's important. But still, it means the total event is powerful, not only due to duration, and it wasn't even a really total eclipse, very, very precisely, but that wouldn't even matter.
Yeah.
I believe it's where in the zodiac is it, and
Yeah.
furthermore, to complicate it, how does this relate in the zodiac? So this was at the end of Pisces, early Aries, which is anyway a very interesting esoteric point, the alpha omega point, and it's of course again the cardinal point, right? Cardinal 1 degree Aries. And then where does it relate in time backwards and forward to other planetary interesting geometries, constellations that will happen in that same area?
That's what Claude Weiss does too.
Yes.
He works with that a lot. And
Yes.
he also groups the eclipses in series, cycles.
Yes.
Like the
Surreal
Sarah
cycle.
cycle.
Yeah.
So eclipses have a certain...
It's about 19 years
yeah,
more or
they
less.
have, they have certain values that
Yeah.
groups them. And so he considers all these things. It's very advanced.
It's
Very advanced.
deeply layered,
Yeah.
complex.
And even that thing you talked about, the
It's in my
the
book.
shadow, the future casts a shadow on the present or something
Yes,
like that.
yeah.
Well, here you've got this eclipse, which actually casts a shadow, but it's giving you a picture of the Saturn-Neptune coming up that same degree
That's right.
in 2025.
Yes, that's what I wrote. That's why I wanted Egon to look at it one more time when you want to look in the book.
I'll read it
There
again.
is Saturn and Neptune going to come together, but that's why I
The
mentioned
same
it
degree as that eclipse that we just had.
in exactly that point.
Yeah.
So I believe the moment we are in now, that I feel we began on the equinox eclipse on the 21st of March, anyway, it's all in the little booklet, will be revisited again and again, and certainly until 2025. So that's why the long story short is, I believe we have this internal 10-year cycles that just now began. It's not a cycle, it's just a duration, I should say.
It may even relate to what happened in 2010,
That's right.
2010, when Uranus crossed that point.
Exactly.
And that's when
Yeah.
Greece bailout
Yeah.
and default started.
Yes.
And now with the eclipse we had a month or so ago, it's come back again.
Yes.
And maybe it'll finally leave the Union in 10 years when we get to Saturn Neptune at that same point.
And so that's a very good answer, what could happen to Greece or what will happen with Russia. And so what else happened when we went into cardinal with Uranus on the second turn? 11 March 2011, Fukushima. Boom.
Oh, that's right.
You see?
Yeah, that's a tsunami.
And I mean, okay, is there a sort of deal, agreement, treaty, reset in currency terms in the coming future? Yes, I believe it's on its way. I have actually information it has been in a sort of, not secret, but confidential manner, been signed. Iran has been signed up with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, and Iran will be also part of the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, many more non-aligned, so-called non-aligned nations, there are about 100 of them, are going to be gradually joining that. How this looks for the Middle East, I would have to go country by country through this with you. I don't know everything by heart, I have to look at my documentation.
How about Iraq?
But for instance,
How about Iraq?
Iraq will be also joining the club eventually, but maybe
Or the
not
BRICS,
all of
the
Iraq's.
US.
And they will go more with BRICS eventually. But what happens, there's one very interesting thing, is that Egypt has joined the Eurasian Treaty with the CIS and Russia. That's done, that's official, that's not in secret. And Iran, I've just mentioned, that's official, has been signed up with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, BRICS, etc. And parts of the others, the non-aligned, are going to sign up with APEC. Now what this means exactly for the currency reset, I can't say in detail, but I have information that the reset is actually underway. Whether it's going to be officialized and sort of introduced to the world in 2016 or in 2021, That I'm not so sure. I am sure about the fact, the information was given to me that that when Obama came in, and I know you had your explanation about why the Messiah and Neptune, etc. Obama came in under the condition that he had to sign over and do the reset, that the reset had to be done. For some reason, he and his crowd delayed it, to the point where they're now saying, well, are we going to wait for him to leave and then try again, or not? So I have now information that says that they're not going to wait and they're going to reset no matter what. And that they're very fed up with the administration. I mean, when I say they, I mean China in particular, and all of them hanging with them together. They're very, very disappointed because there was an agreement that a reset should have been done a while back, and that for reasons I don't know all the details, it has been delayed. That's how much I know, and that's relatively new information I got. Yes?
What reset? What reset?
The currency reset, that we will go out of the current paradigm of currencies into a whole new
The one world currency, for example.
yes, similar, not quite one world. It would be more, there's partly SDR, special drawing rights, but partly a new kind of alliance in the currencies, with gold, of course, backing up behind. That's one of the reasons why China is trying to get as much as possible. Why would they do that? They must know that there comes a moment when everybody will sit at a big table and maybe BIS is involved, Bank of International Settlements, maybe not sure, but where the moment comes, like Egon explained yesterday, where we're going to do something new. So I have information that it should have happened, and it was delayed and delayed. But that's a kind of confidential thing that I was told. But I know it comes from a good source. And I was told it will happen. It's just, then I was asked when, because I'm the astrologer and I should know. And I said it's hard, because it should have happened maybe already as early as 2010, when instead of doing that, they kicked the can with QE 1, 2, 3, 4 and to infinity, because they may well want to do this forever. It just won't work, like Egon explained why it will not work. Okay, so I guess to sum it up, what I can say is, please look at the little booklet that I submitted to you. We've made it available also to the public, because there was a lot of work there involved. But I've been trying now in the last 2 days to give you a little bit under the surface of the Scorpio abilities. Like I can see deeper below the waters. Consider the book the tip of the iceberg, and because these are questions that I was asked. And then I had more questions that came from one client that is in the meeting, and I suggest we'll just do it in private at lunch, because that's somebody who has, after all, done the homework, and I feel that should be answered to the person together with us here, but not in public, not with the camera. And please do look into all of the sources I want to make available to you, because we also have to look at whatever we can find on the public World Wide Web and so on. But we get a lot of our information out in the World Wide Web, but we have to look for it. And so Professor Fursov is someone who does a lot of appearances in video. He's a Russian historian, sociologist. He has a few English translated video. There are very crazy sources that we know and that I'll share in private. I can give you the web addresses to look at. Some of it may be shocking, but most of it we feel is actually true. Like we were talking about the Saker, we were talking about Jim Stone, and also Veterans Today is a relatively excellent network, Golden Dove.
Half Past Human, Cliff.
Oh, Half Past Human, our friend Cliff High.
Oh, yes, nice.
Yes, Cliff High. We did a meeting with him like this many years ago. Yes, very well. He's a friend. I consider Cliff my friend. We did many interviews together on radio. We were interviewed by Project Hammer. There's a whole community between the crazies, the less crazies, but we all talk to each other. But the real operation is psychological. It's like I explained to you this morning, it's the war is on your mind. They try to go into the minds of people. So I'm just mentioning that we have many other sources, and when you take them all, you can piece together a puzzle on your own, and then you see a little bit through the thing. Susan, you had something to say? We good? One. We're done. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.